Sofia Martinez wiped the flour from her hands as the last customer left the Golden Sunrise Bakery. The small shop had been her family's pride for 3 generations. Nestled in the heart of the old quarter where cobblestone streets met modern, city life. At 23, she had spent countless mornings kneading dough and decorating pastries, her dreams often drifting beyond the glass. Play cases filled with croissants and wedding cakes. The evening sun cast a warm glow through the bakery windows as Sofia counted the day's earnings. Her mother, Rosa, emerged from the kitchen with tired eyes but a satisfied smile. Business had been good, but not good enough to expand or renovate the aging equipment that desperately needed replacement. "Mia, you should go out more," Rosa said, noticing her daughter's contemplative expression. "You spend too much time here with an old woman and her bread recipes." Sofia laughed softly, embracing her mother. "This old woman taught me everything I know about creating magic with flour and sugar." As if summoned by their conversation, the bakery door chimed, and Isabella Montenegro swept in like a whirlwind of designer perfume and silk. Isabella had been Sofia's childhood friend before her family's import business made them wealthy enough to move to the exclusive Riverside district. Despite their different paths, she still visited occasionally. Though Sofia sometimes wondered if it was genuine friendship or charitable obligation. "Sofia, darling." Isabella air-kissed both her cheeks, careful not to disturb her perfectly applied makeup. "Have the most incredible invitation for you." Isabella produced an elegant cream-colored envelope with gold embossing. The paper felt expensive between Sofia's fingers, nothing like the simple invoices and receipts she handled daily. "The annual Hearts Foundation Gala," Isabella explained, her eyes sparkling with excitement. "It's this Saturday at the Grand Meridian Hotel. All the city's elite will be there, and I simply cannot attend alone." Sofia read the invitation, noting the astronomical ticket price listed in small print. This was a world she had only glimpsed in magazines and society pages, where people spent more on a single evening than her family earned in months. "Isabella, I appreciate the thought, but I couldn't possibly afford something like this. And I have nothing appropriate to wear." "Nonsense," Isabella waved dismissively. "The ticket is my treat, and I have the perfect dress for you. Consider it a birthday gift even though your birthday was 3 months ago." The transformation Saturday evening arrived with unusual speed, and Sofia found herself standing before her bedroom mirror, barely recognizing her reflection. The midnight blue gown Isabella had provided fit perfectly, flowing like liquid silk over her curves. The dress was elegant without being ostentatious, making her feel like a character from one of the romance novels she secretly read during slow afternoons at the bakery. Her dark hair was swept into an intricate updo, with a few gentle curls framing her face. The makeup was subtle but transformative, highlighting her natural beauty rather than masking it. For the first time in years, Sofia felt genuinely beautiful, though a persistent voice in her mind whispered that she was playing dress-up in someone else's life. The Grand Meridian Hotel stood like a palace of glass and gold against the city skyline. Sofia's breath caught as their taxi pulled up to the red carpet entrance, where photographers captured arriving guests and valet attendants moved with choreographed precision. "Remember," Isabella whispered as they stepped from the car, "confidence is the most important accessory. Walk like you belong here." The ballroom was a fantasy brought to life, with crystal chandeliers casting rainbow prisms across cream-colored walls adorned with fresh roses. Orchestra music drifted through conversations conducted in multiple languages, while servers in crisp white uniforms offered champagne and delicate hors d'oeuvres that looked too beautiful to eat. Sofia accepted a glass of champagne, marveling at how the bubbles tickled her nose. She had never tasted anything so refined, so different from the simple wines her family enjoyed during Sunday dinners. The mysterious stranger, while Isabella networked with practiced ease, greeting acquaintances and making introductions that went over Sofia's head. Sofia found herself drawn to the ballroom's grand windows. The city lights twinkled below like earthbound stars, creating a view that seemed almost magical from this height. She was so absorbed in the scenery, she didn't notice someone approaching until a warm, masculine voice spoke beside her. "Beautiful view, isn't it? Though I have to say, It pales in comparison to some of the company tonight. Sophia turned to find herself looking into the most striking pair of green eyes she had ever seen. The man was tall and lean, with dark hair that seemed intentionally tousled, and a smile that was both charming and slightly mysterious. He wore his tuxedo with an ease that suggested formal wear was as natural to him as her baker's apron was. To her, it really is breathtaking, she replied, proud that her voice remained steady, despite her suddenly racing heart. I've lived in this city my whole life, but I've never seen it from this perspective. Sometimes the best views require a change in elevation, he said with a grin that made her stomach flutter. I'm Damien, by the way. Damien Cross. Sophia Martinez, she responded, noting how her name sounded almost exotic when spoken in such elegant surroundings. Sophia, he repeated thoughtfully, as if testing how her name felt on his tongue. A beautiful name for a beautiful woman. Would you honor me with a dance? The orchestra had begun playing a waltz, and couples were moving onto the polished dance floor. Sophia hesitated. Knowing her dancing experience was limited to the salsa lessons her grandmother had given her years ago. But something about Damien's extended hand made it impossible to refuse. I should warn you, I'm not exactly trained in ballroom dancing, she admitted, as he led her onto the floor. Then we'll make our own rules, he said, positioning his hand at her waist with just the right amount of pressure to guide her, without making her feel controlled. A dance to remember as they moved together. Sophia discovered that dancing with Damien felt as natural as breathing, anticipated her movements, gently guiding her through steps she didn't know she could perform. The rest of the ballroom seemed to fade away until there was nothing but the music, the warmth of his hand in hers, and the way he looked at her as if she were the only person in the room. You're full of surprises, Sophia Martinez, Damien murmured, as he spun her gracefully. Most people at these events are predictable, but you're different. Different how? She asked, genuinely curious about his perspective. Look at things instead of just seeing them. You listen when people speak instead of waiting for your turn to talk. And you have this way of making even a simple conversation feel meaningful. Sophia felt herself blushing under his intense gaze. You don't even know me. I'd like to change that, he said seriously. Very much. The waltz ended too soon, but before they could step apart, the orchestra began another piece, this one slower and more intimate. Without asking, Damien pulled her closer, and Sophia allowed herself to rest her head against his shoulder, inhaling his subtle cologne mixed with something uniquely masculine from across the room. Isabella watched the scene with growing tension. She had recognized Damien Cross immediately. The youngest billionaire in the city and heir to Cross Industries, one of the largest real estate empires in the country. Isabella had been maneuvering for months to get his attention, attending every event where he might appear, but he had never given her more than polite acknowledgement. Now here was Sophia, her charity case friend, effortlessly captivating the man Isabella had been pursuing. The injustice of it burned in her chest like acid. Though she maintained her practiced social smile for the benefit of those around her, secrets and revelations as the evening progressed, Sophia found herself reluctant to leave Damien's side. They talked about everything from classical music to favorite books, discovering an unexpected compatibility despite their vastly different backgrounds. Damien was surprisingly well-read and had a quick wit that kept her laughing, while his questions about her life showed genuine interest rather than polite curiosity. What do you do when you're not gracing charity galas? He asked, during a quiet moment on the terrace where they had stepped out for fresh air. Sophia hesitated, suddenly aware of how different their worlds were. I work in my family's bakery, she said simply, deciding on honesty rather than elaborate fiction. A baker, Damien said with obvious delight. That explains it. Explains what? Why you seem so grounded, so real. You create things with your hands, things that bring people joy. There's something beautiful about that. His response surprised her. She had expected judgment or polite disinterest, not genuine appreciation. Most people at events like this wouldn't find baking very impressive, she said carefully. Most people at events like this have never created anything meaningful in their lives, Damien replied with a slight edge to his voice. They inherit wealth, manipulate markets, or simply exist on trust funds. but you make bread that feeds families, cakes that celebrate life's special moments. That's real contribution. As midnight approached, Sophia knew the evening was ending, but she wasn't ready to return to reality. Isabella appeared at her elbow with their coats and a somewhat forced smile. "Sophia, darling, our car is waiting," she said pointedly. Damien looked disappointed but reached into his jacket pocket for a business card. As he handed it to Sophia, their fingers touched, sending electricity up her arm. "I meant what I said about wanting to know you better," he said quietly. "Will you call me?" Sophia nodded, clutching the card as if it were made of precious metal. "Thank you for the most magical evening of my life." "The pleasure was entirely mine, Sophia Martinez," he replied, raising her hand to his lips for a gentle kiss that made her knees weak. As their car pulled away from the Grand Meridian, Sophia stared out the window at the glittering hotel, knowing that her life had just changed in ways she couldn't yet comprehend. Beside her, Isabella sat in stony silence, her mind already working on plans to ensure that Sophia's fairy tale would have a very different ending than she imagined. The night air was cool against Sophia's flushed cheeks, but inside her heart, something warm and wonderful had taken root. She didn't know that across the city, Damien Cross was standing at his penthouse window, thinking about a beautiful baker who had made him believe in magic again. Sophia woke the next morning with Damien's business card still clutched in her hand, wondering if the entire evening had been an elaborate dream. The midnight blue gown hung carefully in her closet, like evidence of a fairy tale, while her work clothes waited on the chair, ready to pull her back into reality. At the bakery, she moved through her morning routine with unusual distraction, burning the first batch of croissants and accidentally adding salt instead of sugar to the wedding cake frosting. Her mother noticed immediately. "Mia, your head is in the clouds today. Did something happen at that fancy party?" Before Sophia could answer, the bakery door chimed, and her heart stopped. Damien Cross walked in, looking devastatingly handsome in casual jeans and a navy sweater that matched his eyes. He seemed completely at ease in the humble bakery, studying the display cases with genuine interest rather than the polite tolerance she might have expected. "Good morning, Sophia," he said warmly, as if entering her workspace was the most natural thing in the world. "Damien," she breathed, acutely aware that her hair was pinned back messily and she wore a flour-dusted apron. "What are you doing here?" "You didn't call," he said with a teasing smile, "so I thought I'd come to you. I hope that's all right." Rosa emerged from the kitchen, took one look at the expensive car parked outside and the way her daughter was blushing, and immediately understood. "The situation, Mama? This is Damien." "Damien, my mother Rosa Martinez." Damien stepped forward with genuine respect, taking Rosa's flour-dusted hand gently. "Mrs. Martinez, it's an honor. Your daughter is extraordinary, and if this bakery is any indication, that runs in the family." Rosa beamed under his sincere praise, and Sophia felt her heart swell watching him treat her mother with such genuine warmth. Stolen moments over the following weeks, Damien became a regular fixture at Golden Sunrise Bakery, arriving each morning at precisely 10 o'clock for coffee and whatever pastry Sophia recommended. He claimed to be researching neighborhood businesses for potential investment, but Sophia suspected he simply wanted to see her. Their conversations grew deeper with each visit. Damien told her about the pressure of inheriting his father's empire. At 28, the loneliness of never knowing if people liked him for himself or his wealth. Sophia shared her dreams of expanding the bakery, opening a small cafe next door where people could sit and enjoy fresh-baked goods in a cozy atmosphere. "You have vision," Damien said one morning, watching her arrange pastries with artistic precision. "Most business owners think only about immediate profit, but you see the bigger picture of creating community. It's just a silly dream," Sophia demurred. But Damien caught her hand across the counter. "Never call your dreams silly. They're what make you remarkable." The touch of his fingers sent familiar electricity through her system, and when she looked up to find him studying her face with tender intensity, the rest of the world disappeared. "Sophia," he said quietly, "would you have dinner with me tonight? Somewhere private where we can really talk?" A perfect evening that evening. Damien picked her up in a simple sedan rather than the luxury car she'd expected, explaining that he valued discretion over display. He drove them to a small Italian restaurant tucked away in the arts district, where the owner greeted him warmly and led them to a secluded corner table lit by flickering candles. "How did you find this place?" Sophia asked, charmed by the intimate atmosphere and authentic decor. "Marco's family has owned this restaurant for 40 years, Damien explained. His daughter Sophia was in my graduating class at university. He makes the best ossobuco in the city, and more importantly, he doesn't care about gossip or social media." The dinner was perfect. They shared stories about their childhoods, debated favorite books and movies, and discovered a shared love of old musicals and weekend hiking. Damien was nothing like the cold, calculating businessman she'd imagined billionaires to be. He was warm, funny, and genuinely interested in her thoughts and opinions. As they walked along the quiet canal after dinner, Damien suddenly stopped and turned to face her. "Sophia, I need to tell you something. These past few weeks getting to know you have been the happiest I've been in years. You make me want to be better than I am. You're already wonderful," she whispered, touched by his vulnerability. "Falling in love with you?" he said simply. "Completely, hopelessly in love." Before she could respond, he cupped her face gently and kissed her under the stars. The kiss was tender at first, then deepened as she melted against him, her arms wrapping around his neck. When they finally broke apart, both were breathing hard. "I love you too," she whispered against his lips. "I was terrified to admit it, but I do." The web of deception unknown to the happy couple, Isabella had been conducting her own investigation, using her family's connections and a private investigator. She'd been documenting every one of Damien's visits to the bakery, every moment he'd spent with Sophia, consumed by jealousy and a sense of entitlement. Isabella couldn't accept that Sophia had won the prize she'd been chasing for months. In her twisted logic, Sophia had somehow cheated by being genuine and kind. Qualities Isabella viewed as unfair advantages. She began her campaign subtly, calling Sophia with casual questions about her new friend and expressing concern about the differences in their backgrounds. "Darling, I just worry about you getting hurt," Isabella said during one of these manipulative phone calls. "Men like Damien Cross date girls like us for fun, but they marry within their own social class. It's just how their world works." "Damien isn't like that," Sophia protested, but Isabella's words planted seeds of doubt that grew in the quiet moments. When Sophia was alone, "Of course not, sweetie. I'm sure he cares about you. But ask yourself this. Has he introduced you to his family? His business associates? Has he taken you to any events in his social circle?" The questions stung because they held grains of truth. While Damien spent nearly every free moment with her, their relationship existed in a carefully constructed bubble. He'd never mentioned meeting his parents or attending functions together. Isabella pressed her advantage. "I heard from Caroline Winters that Damien's mother is actively looking for a suitable wife for him, someone from an established family who can help with his political aspirations." Each poisonous word was designed to exploit Sophia's insecurities about their different backgrounds. And Isabella watched with satisfaction as doubt crept into her former friend's eyes. The turning point came when Isabella arranged to accidentally encounter Sophia and Damien during one of their private dinners. She arrived at Marco's restaurant with a date, timing her entrance perfectly to interrupt their romantic evening. "Damien, what a surprise," Isabella exclaimed, approaching their table with calculated enthusiasm. "I didn't know you frequented places like this." Damien's jaw tightened with obvious displeasure at the interruption, but he remained polite. "Isabella, this is unexpected. Sophia, darling, you didn't mention you were seeing Damien regularly." Isabella's tone was sweet, but her eyes were cold. "Though I suppose you want to keep things quiet, considering the circumstances." "What circumstances?" Sophia asked, though she dreaded the answer. Isabella feigned surprise. "Oh, you haven't heard? Damien's engagement to Victoria Ashworth is being announced next month. The families have been planning it for years." The color drained from Sophia's face as she looked at Damien, who appeared genuinely shocked by the announcement. "That's not true," Damien said firmly. "My mother has been pressuring me about Victoria, but I've made it clear I'm not interested in an arranged marriage." "Really?" Isabella tilted her head innocently. Because Victoria's father seemed quite certain when I spoke with him at the club yesterday. He mentioned wedding venues and guest lists. Sophia felt sick. While part of her believed Damien's denial, another part wondered if Isabella might be right about the realities of his world. Perhaps she'd been naive to think their love could overcome such massive social and economic differences. "I think I should go home," Sophia said quietly, standing abruptly. "Sophia, wait." Damien reached for her hand, but she pulled away. "I need some time to think," she said, her voice barely steady, "about everything." As she walked quickly toward the restaurant exit, Isabella smiled with cold satisfaction. The first phase of her plan had worked perfectly. Sophia spent 3 agonizing days avoiding Damien's calls and texts, her heart breaking a little more each time she heard his voice pleading with her to let him explain. The bakery felt like a refuge and a prison simultaneously, as every corner reminded her of his visits and their growing love. Meanwhile, Damien was conducting his own investigation. The thing about Isabella's perfectly timed appearance and knowledge of his mother's schemes felt orchestrated. He hired the best private investigator in the city, and what they discovered made his blood boil. Isabella had been systematically sabotaging their relationship for weeks, feeding Sophia carefully crafted lies designed to exploit her insecurities. The story about his engagement to Victoria Ashworth was completely fabricated, though Isabella had cleverly based it on his mother's wishes rather than any actual arrangement. More damaging was the evidence of Isabella's campaign to isolate Sophia socially. She'd been spreading rumors in their old neighborhood about Sophia using her friendship to climb socially, poisoning relationships with people who had known Sophia since childhood. The final revelation was the most shocking. Isabella had been feeding information to gossip columnists, preparing to expose their relationship in the most humiliating way possible. Her plan was to paint Sophia as a gold digger, who had manipulated her way into high society through deception. The grand gesture on Friday morning, Sophia was mechanically preparing bread dough when Rosa burst through the kitchen door, holding her phone with trembling hands. "Mia, you need to see this immediately." On the screen was a live stream from the city's main news station. Damien stood at a podium outside Cross Industries headquarters, facing a crowd of reporters and photographers. "I've called this press conference to address rumors about my personal life," Damien said, his voice carrying clearly through the phone speakers. "There have been malicious lies spread about someone I care about deeply, and I won't allow them to continue." Sophia's heart pounded as she watched the man she loved defend her publicly. "For the past month, I've been in love with an extraordinary woman named Sophia Martinez. She owns Golden Sunrise Bakery with her family, and she's the most genuine, kind, and intelligent person I've ever met." The reporters buzzed with excitement, cameras flashing as they captured every word. "Sophia didn't pursue me or manipulate me in any way. I pursued her because I recognized something rare and precious when I found it. Anyone suggesting otherwise is either misinformed or deliberately malicious." I paused, looking directly into the main camera as if speaking to Sophia personally. "No, you're watching, Sophia. I know someone has convinced you that our love can't survive the differences in our backgrounds, but they're wrong. Love doesn't recognize social classes or bank account balances. It only recognizes truth. And the truth is that I can't imagine my life without you." Sophia's hands flew to her mouth as tears streamed down her cheeks. "Wait. I'm announcing my complete withdrawal from any business or social obligations that don't align with my personal values. Cross Industries will be restructured to focus on community development and affordable housing. And if Sophia Martinez will have me, I intend to spend the rest of my life proving that love is the only currency that matters." The revelation is Damien's. Press conference concluded. Sophia's phone rang. The caller ID showed Isabella's name, and despite her emotional turmoil, Sophia answered. "Did you see the news?" Isabella's voice was tight with panic. "Sophia, you have to know I was only trying to protect you." "Protect me from what, Isabella?" Sophia asked quietly. "From being loved by a good man? From being humiliated when he inevitably left you for someone more suitable?" Isabella snapped, her mask of concern finally slipping. "I was saving you from public embarrassment." "No," Sophia said with growing clarity. "You were saving yourself from watching me be happy with the man you wanted." Isabella's silence confirmed what Sophia had suspected. The friendship she'd treasured since childhood had been poisoned by jealousy and manipulation. Isabella, I forgive you because we have history, but I never want to see you again. What you did was cruel and selfish, and I won't let you destroy anything else in my life. She hung up and immediately dialed Damien's number. The reunion Damien answered on the first ring, his voice breathless with hope. Sophia, I saw the press conference, she said, her voice thick with tears. I'm so sorry I doubted you. You at the bakery? He asked urgently. Yes, but Damien, you should know that your grand gesture just put us in the spotlight permanently. Are you sure you're ready for that? I've never been more sure of anything, he said firmly. I'm coming too. You right now. 20 minutes later, Damien burst through the bakery door, ignoring the crowd of reporters and photographers that had followed him. He swept Sophia into his arms, spinning her around as she laughed and cried simultaneously. Martinez, he declared loud enough for the cameras to capture. Will you marry me? Without hesitation, Sophia kissed him passionately in front of the flashing cameras and cheering crowd that had gathered outside. Yes, she whispered against his lips. Yes to everything. The perfect ending 6 months later, Sophia stood in the bridal suite of the Grand Meridian Hotel, the same venue where they'd first met. Her wedding dress was a masterpiece of silk and lace, but more importantly, it was her choice. Paid for with money she'd earned from the successful expansion of Golden Sunrise Bakery. True to his word, Damien had restructured his business empire to focus on community development. Their first joint project was a culinary arts school that would provide training and microloans for aspiring bakers and chefs from underserved communities. Rosa entered the bridal suite, tears in her eyes as she looked at her daughter. Mia, you look like a princess, but more importantly, you look happy. I am, Mama, completely happy. Through the window, Sophia could see the wedding guests arriving. The guest list was an eclectic mix of billionaires and bakers, society figures, and neighborhood friends. Damien had insisted that their wedding reflect both their worlds coming together. Isabella had not been invited, though Sophia had heard through mutual acquaintances that she'd left the city entirely, reportedly moving to Europe to start fresh. Sophia felt no anger toward her former friend, only sadness for the love that jealousy had destroyed. The wedding of the century, the ceremony was held in the hotel's rose garden, transformed into a fairy tale setting with thousands of white roses and twinkling lights. As Sophia walked down the aisle on her father's arm, she saw only Damien waiting at the altar, his face radiant with love and joy. Their vows were simple but profound. Damien promised to love her exactly as she was, to support her dreams, and to build a life where their different backgrounds became their greatest strength. Sophia vowed to trust in their love, to face whatever challenges came together, and to never let anyone else's doubts diminish what they'd built. When the minister pronounced them husband and wife, their kiss was captured by cameras from around the world. But Sophia was aware only of Damien's lips on hers and the promise of their future together. Happily ever after, the reception was legendary. With dancing that lasted until dawn and a 7-tier wedding cake that Sophia had designed and baked herself, each layer representing a different flavor from around the world. During their first dance as husband and wife, Damien whispered in her ear, "Do you remember what I said that first night about the best views requiring a change in elevation?" "Remember everything about that night," Sophia replied, her arms tight around his neck. "I was wrong," he said, with a smile that made her heart flutter exactly the way it had that first evening. "The best view is right here in my arms, and it doesn't require any elevation at all." As they swayed together under the stars, surrounded by the people they loved most, Sophia reflected on the journey that had brought them to this moment. She'd learned that true love wasn't about fairy tales or social climbing, but about finding someone who saw your worth and chose to build a life celebrating it. The girl who'd gone to a luxury party and danced with a millionaire had indeed awakened envy in her friend, but more importantly, she'd awakened something beautiful in herself. She'd discovered that she was worthy of grand love, not because she'd changed to fit someone else's world, but because she'd remained true to her own heart. Years later, when people told the story of Damien Cross and Sophia Martinez, they would Remember it as proof that love could conquer any obstacle, bridge any gap, and create its own happily ever after. And in the Golden Sunrise Bakery, now expanded into a thriving cafe and culinary school, a framed photo of their first dance would hang on the wall, reminding everyone who saw it that dreams really do come true for those brave enough to believe in love. The end.